Hey, what's up, guys? It's been a couple of weeks. Wasn't intentional, but spent that time with family. Oh, I just realized they got one of these cool little green backgrounds. Y'all know I don't do that, but I guess I'm guilty of using the prop because I use this Bentley right here as a prop. But anyways, I'm not gonna be showing my face too much on this video, but I just want y'all to see it and let y'all know I'm still alive, still well. But yeah, I spent the past couple weeks with family, and that's why I didn't make any videos. But let's jump right in. So, you guys know, I always like to come to these places, and eventually I will be a customer. I don't know whose artwork is by. Artist, getting free promo. I'm gonna say Kirill. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that last name, but anyways, got some free promo. But this is a Bentley, if you can't tell. I don't know what year or model Bentley it is, but tell it's one of the older models. So, anyways, today's topic, we want to talk to you, interesting enough, about generational wealth. And I know that's a buzz phrase that you hear a lot nowadays. And the reason I want to bring it up is because I feel that a lot of you are interested in it or may have heard someone talk about it, but you really, maybe not you specifically, but in my experience, the people that talk about generational wealth, they don't even have a lifetime's worth of wealth. Look at this, they got I mean, I don't eat perfect, but man, that's a straight temptation, man. Reese's and Hershey's, that's what they give out here. I mean, anyways. And just so you guys know, I don't know if you ever been to a dealership, like, and when I say dealership, I mean like a exclusive brand like Bentley or Ferrari or Lambo, but they have these areas here where you could come and sit down and like build your custom car if you want. So like, they'll have stuff like swatches, or you can see like just a different type of keychains and things. So yeah, so they'll have notebooks. I would say notebooks, but binders like this, so you can see you can see all the different accessories and things that you might could get for your car. And it looks like you can get like all the matching gear and clothes and toys for your kids. And let me see. Then you'll see something like this. It's like pure Bentley. So just a storybook, if you will, showing you the services, obviously the history of the brand, right? I don't think that's the exact model that you're looking at, but clearly that's a former driver, racer of the vehicle, right? So you can see what some of the old races look like and things. So yeah, you get a real history lesson in the brand and where it comes from. As you can see, 100 extraordinary years. And then, as you can see, now that I'm actually paying attention to the TV, got like essentially like a Bentley infomercial, if you will, playing in the background. And you can hear like classical music, so I'll shut up for a second and let you listen. Yeah, so classical music playing, right? No, you're not gonna hear, or at least not here, you won't. You're not gonna hear any Juicy J, Fans will make her dance playing in the background. Because that's not really their typical customer, if you can actually believe that. Anyways, back to generational wealth. So most people that are talking about it, they don't even have a single generation's worth of wealth. They don't even have 1 year's worth of wealth, let alone generational wealth. And so I liken it to maybe a kid in elementary school talking about winning an NBA championship, right? It's not to say that it's not possible. It's not to say that he can't accomplish that. But it's just to say that there's so many steps in between that, and there's so many things that have to happen before you get to that, that to talk about on a daily basis is kind of silly, right? Because it's like, why don't we just focus on making your elementary school team? Or why don't we just focus on making the middle school team, right? Why don't we just focus on how to be the best player on your team first, right? Why don't we get to high school and just figure out whether or not you're even good against, you know, other high school teams in your area, right? And finance is no different. Most people seem to think, and I'll tell you where this is coming from as I'm showing you these vehicles. Sorry, I'm going to be jumping back and forth, so stick with me here because I'm, like I said, showing you all the vehicles and things, but also trying to give you this lesson on generational wealth, which this is very nice, by the way. I like it. I mean, this is really, really dope dealership that they actually allow you to, like open up the cars and get inside. You can sit in them, which is, I think is really dope because there are dealerships where, they got a cone around it or big old rope and they're like, do not touch. And they make it seem so just, untouchable basically. And then there's other dealerships like this that park their cars right out in the rain, and leave them there. So it's a very interesting dynamic to see depending on the location, how they treat their car. And I mean, same brands. I'm not even talking about, somebody that's not Bentley. I'm talking about like fellow Bentley dealerships, Lamborghini, Rolls Royce. It's very interesting to see those things. So, but yeah, this is just beautiful here. Just to give you guys, and I like this. This one's got the pillow too. And as you can see, they got just beautiful stitching. And one thing, just on a side note, or a tangent, if you will, like I always hear, people go, oh, well, myself included, at one point in time, I have a Genesis GV80, and I have to confess that once I got my Genesis, I wasn't as excited about getting a Bentley, right? And to be fair, I am not in a position where I can afford one as of yet. It doesn't fit my budget. You can see the manufacturer's suggested price. That is $300,000. Yes, brand new, 25 model year Bentayga S Black Edition V8. And you can see here at the top, $260,000. So looks like about $30,000 worth of upgrades, a $4,000 destination charge gets you about $300K. All right. But anyways, you'll hear people say, and like I said, I'm guilty of it at one point in time, saying, oh well, this Genesis is just as nice as that Bentley, and to an extent, to be fair, exterior wise, you can kind of put these next to each other. Now I see the Bentley a lot more, so I know the difference off the top of my head because I want to buy one. But I would say to a person that's not into vehicles, you could probably have one drive past you at 20, 30 miles an hour and be like, yeah, they're both nice. One wouldn't stand out over the other, to be fair. And I've, driven next to them and things. But when I went back and looked at the stats on this and the motor and the performance, and obviously the brand, right? Bentley brand is on a level of its own. Let's not pretend that Genesis is on the same level as Bentley. It's not. But a lot of times you can kind of fall into that trap, and it's easy to, I wouldn't even call it a trap, but I will say that it is easy to feel that way when you cannot afford it, right? To go, oh, I wouldn't be interested in that, or oh yeah, I'd be happy with this. And to be fair, there's nothing wrong with the Genesis. I enjoy it. It's a very luxurious vehicle. and it does everything that it is advertised to do, right? So it meets its intention for sure. There's no shortage, or there's no overselling of it, I guess you could say. It does what it's supposed to do. But the Bentley is just in another level, and that's just the bottom line. When you actually come and see these, you just realize, yeah, it's just another level. Is it double, if not triple, the price nicer? I don't think so. I mean, it's not 200K nicer, but, that's not what Bentley's built on. They are exclusive for a reason. And this one, I guess the reason why I'm hesitating on this one or pausing on this one's actually extended wheelbase. So you probably can't tell, but this back door is like an extra 6 inches. And so you have more space in the back. But a lot of the vehicles, I'll say the interiors, you'll notice that obviously it's leather, but you have this cross diamond stitching that you'll see. Very clean interior. Nowadays, it's kind of hard to get more exclusive on interior, if you will, because I would say lower priced vehicles have kind of caught up. But even just a little attention to detail, like the cross stitching there in the door, you'll see, the speakers, obviously, speaker systems. Like, I don't know if you can see there's, you got like tweeters there and the pillars and stuff and the A-frame. So, and then you'll have a bigger motor, and then obviously like wheels. So these, I don't know how they look on the camera, but these are like 22-inch. These are 22-inch wheels. It's not showing up on the camera, but you can see these are 285 40/22 tires. So those are actually 22-inch rims, which I don't know your age, but if you remember back in the early 2000s, everybody was rapping about, having their car on dubs, having their truck on dubs. Well, dubs are 20-inch rims. So just for reference, now these are 22s straight from the factory, right? So gives you an idea of, the size and how it sits. And, I'll say about 5'9", and I can sit in here comfortably without banging my head, and I can sit up front. And I think you could probably have 2 people, one behind the other, and they both would have enough leg room. Not as much. One of the things I will say about these is, not as much trunk space as you would imagine. I mean, you could probably fit a suitcase here, and I guess if you laid them on their side, like stood them up instead of flat, like horizontal, you probably could fit 2 in there. But for it to be an SUV, the trunk space, in my opinion, leaves a little bit to be desired, but that's, I guess you could say, my only gripe. But I don't know that anyone buys a Bentayga just because they are looking for trunk space, but it's just something to know. And just gives you a overview of the parking lot outside. We're going to go there as well and, kind of walk the parking lot. But you can see, got some Bentley. Well, I mean, it's a Bentley dealership, so I don't even know why I say that. But more Bentleys. More Bentleys. I don't know if you can see it. We got a BMW there, some Range Rovers, looks like. Wow, look at that. They got a Rolls Royce Cullinan parked outside in the weather, like I told you. Looks like another Rolls Royce there. The Wraith. Mercedes S-Class. Doesn't that look kind of, I wouldn't say it looks basic, but, just doesn't stand out as much sitting next to a Rolls Royce and Bentleys, right? Looks, I would say, a little more plain than it would by itself in a parking lot. But yeah, this is Bentley. So these are SUVs, and we're going to take a look at the car. So I'm going to kind of set up about the vehicle so we can get into our topics, but I'm still going to show you the interiors and things and just kind of highlight, well, I don't want to say highlight, but just, allow you to take a look at the different features and things. And this one's got some crazy, looks like checkered pattern on the rims. That's pretty dope. Really dope. But back to generational wealth. Okay, so most people that are talking about this, they don't even have, 365-day wealth, right? And the reason I bring this up is, I hear so many people talking about, generational wealth, yada, 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 yada. And I think it comes from 2 places. For one, I think it's procrastination on what they need to do to actually have or to be rich in their own lifetime. And also, it sounds better to say, oh, well, I'm sacrificing, but, I'm putting things in place. Hold on, let me turn these things. There we go. I'm putting in things in place, so my kids can be wealthy, so my kids can have opportunities that I didn't have. And that sounds noble, but the reality is, if you don't have any money, oh wow, look at this one. This is 400,000. If I could tell you what the difference between the two is, that makes them 100K difference, I couldn't tell you. But wow, look at that. But the reality is, if you don't have any money, how are you going to give your kids any? Other than having a great life insurance policy and dying, right? But I think most people will tell you that those who are have real generational wealth, they don't have to die for their kids to, I guess could say, have that money. They have that money during their lifetime, right? So, and I think a lot of times when people say that, they grossly underestimate how much money it really is before you could even truly start talking about generational wealth, right? And so I'm going to tell you about this post. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was on social media somewhere. And the guy was talking about, well, if you do X, Y, Z and you save this much, and, in 5 years, you could have $100,000 in your bank or in your investment account. And I just replied on there, I guess you could call it trolling, if you will. But I essentially said that you're just pandering to people, right? You're not actually trying to help anyone. And the guy's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. You must be out of touch with reality. And I said, okay, let's play this game. I said, it's the year 2030. You got $100,000 cash in your account. I was like, forget these Bentleys, right? Because we're talking about 2030 now. It's 2025. Now, let's forget about this 400, right? Because we just saw that one was 400,000 brand new. The other one was 300,000 brand new. Okay, so you got $100,000 cash. You can't even walk into the Chevy dealership. Forget a Bentley. You can't walk into the Chevy dealership and buy the nicest car on the lot cash in 2030. Okay, you want to talk about home ownership. You can't go and buy a starter home cash in most places in America. And like I said, I didn't say imagine. I said a starter home, a brand new starter home. You can't pay for it cash. I was like, so to work 5 years to save 100K, I said, it's too slow. And, some people actually ask the real questions. They say, well, what do you recommend? Because what you're saying makes sense. And the reason I bring that up is because there's people that are, that might have 100,000 or they think 100,000 is a lot, and they're talking about generational wealth. And I'm here to help you do the math on this, because there are, I guess you could say, there are varying opinions on this, right? Because how you live and how I live and how someone else wants to live are, 10 different ways. If you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 20 different lifestyles, right? So there's no need to try to define it definitively, but let's just give some, let's just give it a starting point, right? And let's agree on some definitions first before we even get into it. So generational. Right? So ideally, when we're looking at generational, we want to say at least 2 generations of a family that can live off this money, i.e. your children can live their full lifetime on this money, and then your grandchildren can live their full lifetime on this money. So that's 2 generations, generational, right? And so when you look at that, if you want to go, let's say the average life expectancy of a person is, We'll say 50 years. I know it's way more than that, but we're just trying to make the math easy. We'll just say 50 years. So your kids are going to live 50 years and enjoy the money, and your grandkids are going to live 50 years and enjoy the money. So now we need this money in place that is going to last for 100 years. And I think if I just stop right there, right, I don't even think I need to go any further. But I think if we just stop right there, I think anybody watching this could agree that the people that you hear talking about generational wealth, 99% of them don't have enough money in the bank to last 100 months at their current income if everything were to shut down, right? So meaning if they lost their job, right, or their business, stopped producing profits and revenue, that right now they would not be able to live 100 months. And what's 100 months? Let's see. That is 100 divided by 12, so that's close to 8. 8 is about 8 years. So let alone 100 years, they can't last 100 months. But they're talking about generational wealth. And I think you're starting to see how silly it is. And it's not that I'm saying that it's a bad idea or it's a silly idea. I'm just saying that these people are talking about a level that they're nowhere near. And I think it would be more important and more advantageous to say, why don't we just talk about you getting rich first before we start talking about generational wealth, right? Why don't we just start talking about you getting rich so that you have enough income or enough disposable cash, if you will, to invest, to start generating and creating some wealth, that you can actually start buying some things for ownership's sake and for equity. How you doing? Good. Rather than just 100% buying consumables or liabilities, right? And that's not to say that I'm against those things. I'm certainly not. But when you're describing, we said 100 years, I think you agree, 100K, no matter what you do with it, unless you just buy a Powerball lottery ticket and win, there's nothing you're going to do today with 100K that's going to last 100 years other than just bury it in a freaking box, right? But I think you'll agree that in order for people to actually live off of that 100K for 100 years, it's got to grow substantially if they're just going to live off that 100K exclusively, right? And have any sort of quality of life. And if inflation remains at the same rate that it does now currently, then my goodness, in 100 years, so this is 2025, so in the year 2125, if this world is still around, then man, what would the price of a car be then? If a Bentley is $400,000 today, and 100 years ago, it might have been $4,000, then that means in 100 years, if inflation remains the same, then that means in 100 years, a new Bentley should cost about $4 million. All right. So I think we kind of hit that point. So I'm going to jump off of it because I think any person with the brain can kind of understand that and get it. But you go, okay, well, how do I, figure out those numbers? Let's go for a single person. I won't even say a single person, but let's just go for your individual lifetime. And we'll say, we'll make some assumptions that you're under 50, you're going to live to 100 years. So you need to have 50 years worth of, I don't know why, I'm not really a big Aston Martin fan, but I'll just walk over there just to show. But you need it to last, let's say 50 years. And right now, in most places in America, you need a minimum of $100,000 a year to have any sort of, I would say, to survive, but we'll say any sort of lifestyle, right? And I don't know why these cars are good, but I'm just not a huge Aston Martin fan. I'm just not. And this is the brand that James Bond drives all, by the way. It's Aston Martins. They look good inside. I mean, they look good. But for whatever reason, I don't have a legitimate reason, but I just am not as huge of a fan of Aston Martins. But anyways, most markets, and let's see what the price on it is. Price on it is still $360. Wow, look at that. But anyways, we'll say it's 100K. And so 50 years, right, times 100K, right? You do those zeros. And forgive me, my brain's acting slow today, but we'll say, was that 50 years? So that's what, 5 million, I think, at 100,000? Yeah, for 50 years, yeah, that's 5 million. So for you to quote unquote live for 50 years and not earn any money and live off of what you live off that type of money, or live off of your nest egg, if you will, and obviously this is not with you earning any interest or anything, you would need at least $5 million in the bank. All right? So hopefully you can follow that. And this is actually a good example. Hold on a second. This is what I was talking about. You have the swatches, so see how you just have the different colors for your car, so you can get an example of what the car is going to look like. You can see the different cloths. I think these are called swatches, but you can see the different type of leathers and see what it's going to look like inside the car, right? So, and then you'll sit here on the couch and your salesman will walk you through it, and you'll pick your colors and things, and you order it, and then 6 months or a year later, or however long it takes for them to make the vehicle, then they will they'll have it delivered. And if you want a ribbon on it, they'll put a ribbon on it. If you want it delivered to the house, they'll deliver it to a house. If you want it you want them to meet you at Walmart and unload the truck in front of Walmart, whatever you want, they'll do it. Look at that, they got an old school Rolls Royce Phantom right out there. We're gonna walk past it too. Man, that thing looks nice. But anyways, so yeah, for 50 years, if you wanted to spend $100,000 a year, you would need about $5 million in their bank. And so I think you're starting to realize, like, wow, $100,000 is not really that much money, especially depending on where you live. If you live in Mississippi, you live in Starksville, Mississippi. I've been there once, will never go again. Don't recommend it. Don't go there. You've been warned. But if you live in Starksville, Mississippi, $100,000 for the year, you might be in some tall cotton, right? You might be able to hire some slaves and outsource that cotton picking for yourself, like I'm just being funny when I say that. Don't get too caught up, but you might be able to, outsource that cotton picking for yourself, Look at that Rolls Royce though. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And that one is not for sale. That is somebody's actual Phantom. So I ain't gonna show too much, but wow. Whew, look at that. But yeah. Oh yeah, this is what the extended wheelbase SUV looks like. So you can tell unless you really know what you're looking for, you really can't tell the difference, right? But that is extended wheelbase Bentley. But yeah, 100,000 in Starksville, Mississippi, tall cotton, right? You can outsource that picking to somebody else and sit at home, kick your feet up, right? But if you in LA, you in New York City, you out in Miami, you in the heart of Atlanta, right? You in West Palm Beach. I haven't been to Colorado, but I imagine there's places in Denver, right? And then there's just places that you can't even afford to live, even with that, like Greenwich, Connecticut. Wow, look how this Bentley looks. Man, doesn't that look clean right there? This all blacked out one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Like you're not even gonna be able to afford to live, really, in like New York City on 100K. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just gonna be struggling. Now, that doesn't mean that you're gonna starve to death, but you're certainly not going to feel like you can go out to eat every night, or that you can be taking trips and you can be renting yachts and flying private and all. No, like, you're literally just going to have a place to stay You're going to be cooking meals at home, and you're going to be saying 100K is just not that much. Oh yeah, this one's like 389. 2020 though. Most sane. Man, imagine that. A 5-year-old car is still asking 400K for it, right? And we're still here discussing 100K for the year to live on. And this car is 5 years old, and they're still asking over 300,000 for it on the lot. All right, so yeah, just to put things in perspective for you. But again, so many people are focused on minimal six figures, and when I say minimal, I'm going to talk about lower level six figures, right? Because there's a huge difference between making $600,000 a year and making $150,000 a year, right? Because you can just get a good job and make $150,000 a year. I'm not even kidding. And I have friends that do that, so don't kid yourself. And then, so yeah, anyways, $100,000, 50 years, you're looking at $5 million. Now, if you up that to $200,000 a year, where okay, now you're starting to get a little bit better quality of life. Now you're talking 10 million, right? For 50 years. So you need about 10 million in the bank to live 50 years at $200,000 a year, just for one lifetime, right? So now you want to talk about generational wealth. And that's why, in my opinion, and again, this is opinion, it's not fact, but I can back it up with math. I don't think you can even discuss generational wealth until you're at least north of 10 or 20 million, right? And when I say that, I'm not even saying that you're there. I'm just saying that when you have 10, 20 million cash or easy to liquidate, right? Liquid net worth, not something that's locked up, an asset that can't be sold, right? But a liquid 10 to 20 million dollar net worth. Then, and look at this. Look how dirty this is, by the way. Again, I want you to wrap your mind around it. This is a $500,000 car, brand new. I don't know if you can see. Look at that. Look at that. Look how dirty it is, right? So we're talking about generational wealth, and I want you to just pause on this thought for a second. On one hand, we're talking about making $200,000 a year for 50 years, right? And we're not talking about making it, but being able to spend $200,000 a year for 50 years without working, right? Because you got one lifetime of wealth. And here's a $500,000 SUV sitting out in the rain, not in the garage, because they got a garage, right? There's a garage right there. They got a garage, they can put it in. There's space in there, it's not packed. And guess what? It's out in the rain, in the weather. Now, why do I point that out? Because I want you to think about just where the numbers are when you're talking about generational wealth. And again, like I said, generational versus just one lifetime, just getting rich, period. And then, you might feel uncomfortable talking about $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year or $500,000 a year, be able to spend that and have a lifestyle like that. And here's one vehicle. I guarantee you this is not their only vehicle, whoever owns that, and it's out in the rain. Their $500,000 vehicle that's brand new, it's not busted down, right? I mean, it's dirty, it needs to be washed, but look, it's not busted up. It hadn't been in an accident. Look at it. I don't want to go in the back because I don't know if they got a tag on it or not, but look at that. It's in good condition. And it's sitting out in the weather. Meanwhile, there's people out here, arguing that, someone's out of touch if they don't think $150,000 or $200,000 a year in income is a lot of money, right? But it all depends on who you're around, what you've been exposed to, and what your current life experiences are. But I'm here to tell you $100,000, $200,000 a year is just not that much. But again, for 50 years, you got to be north of 10 million. That's why I said you got to be north of 10, 20 million. And that's just the last one lifetime. And that's if you're smart and you don't mess it up, right? Because how many NBA players, how many football players, how many rappers, what did T-Pain do, right? And they go through all 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars. They blow it and they go broke and you have to rebuild it again. Man, I'm hoping this weather holds up for me. But if it doesn't, I'm gonna have to go outside. But anyways, the reason I bring that up is so many of you are talking about it and you're not even rich yet. And I'm asking you why. Why are you worried about generational wealth and you haven't even figured out how to get rich yet? And you're trying to pass down a house, a car, or you're trying to pass down $50,000 or $100,000 to your kids and to your loved ones. And it's not a bad thing. It's not that your heart is in the wrong place. Your heart's in the right place for sure. But I have to really ask you, are you really doing the math on these things? And are you really asking yourself, what can someone do with 100,000? The only thing you can do with it is get back to work and grow it. That's it. You can't live on it. There's nothing else you can do with $100,000 other than to invest it and grow it. That's it. It's not enough for you to quit your job. It's not enough really for you to even take a whole year off of work, to be honest. Like if you're making $150,000 a year, I think I need to get closer to this building. Just in case this rain gets crazy. I'm hoping it's just a cloud, but yeah, let me get inside. But yeah, it's like if you're making $150,000 a year, if somebody drops $100K in your account cash, well, you only got enough to take 8 months out of the year or whatever it is, maybe 7 months. You can't even take the whole year off. Just think about that, right? So now, how do you figure out what your just net worth, or I guess you could say, well, not even really net worth, but what the liquid cash number is for you to be free? Fine, because I would say you need to reach financial freedom first, right? Where you don't have to work before you can start worrying about freeing somebody else. You got to free yourself first before you can free somebody else. So how do you determine that number? I would say look at your ideal lifestyle, what it costs today, right? So when we talk about ideal lifestyle, I'm not talking about look at everything, right? Look at the house you want to own, or if you want to own multiple properties, right? Look at the trips you want to take, right? I think I'm gonna stand up underneath this thing for a little bit. I think this cloud is gonna pass, but if it doesn't, then I think this is a good spot where I'm not getting too wet. I think it's just a cloud that's passing. But yeah, look at how you want to live. And I would say look at the cost of living. So look at the housing, look at the cars you want to buy, look at the trips you want to take. And when I say trips, I don't mean, it's going to sound bad, but I don't mean low budget trips. I'm talking about trips in style, right? You're going to stay at the Marriott at a minimum, right? You're going to stay at the Hyatt or the Hilton, at a minimum. And you're actually going to go out to eat a couple of times. You're actually going to be able to order room service, right? And not only that, but you're actually going to be able to participate in the excursions, right? So obviously you guys can tell that I've done low budget travel in my lifetime, especially as a kid growing up, right? Where you're actually going to be able to do what you want to do. So when you look at that, in my opinion, for most people, you're going to be somewhere north of $250,000. Now, we didn't account for inflation because we said this has got to last 50 years, right? So we're assuming you're going to live for another 50 years. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, maybe you'll live longer. Who knows? So now inflation, I don't know what the numbers are on inflation, but we'll say it's a minimum, at least 2-3% per year, maybe more some years, maybe a little bit less. But we're going to say every 10 years, you're going to need to add 10% to that 250 in order to be able to sustain the lifestyle, right? So that means if it's 250,000 today, then 10 years from now, it's going to cost you 275 to be able to sustain it. And I think we all can agree that that might not even be enough, right? You might even need to double it, right? It might need to be 300 to live on the same that it costs 250, especially 10 years, right? But yeah, I think that's actually closer. So we'll say 20%. So anyways, every 10 years, so that means you need what, 250 every 10 years, then you need 300, and then you need, what is that, a 360, and then blah, after 360, oh man, I'm running out of math, 772K, 72 plus 360 is, oh man, my brain's running out. But anyways, it's over 400 something. So I think you can see, like, we talked about 200K at 50 years. Now I'm telling you, most of you, your dream lifestyle is going to cost at least 250,000 a year, if not more. Look at this Beamer, looks clean. Then you're talking about north of $20 million liquid to really be, I guess you could say, quote unquote, financially free. Cash. Now, for a lot of you, that might just cause you to check out, give up, or you go, man, I don't know how in the world I can make $20 million. That's just insane, right? What about all these people I see on the internet? Now, there are ways to live that way without having 20 million, right? Obviously, you can go into real estate and when I say go into real estate, meaning you can buy properties and things like that. And if you manage them well and you buy them well, then you could actually end up having, was 250,000. Yes, you could say you get a 20 grand a month pretty easily with rental properties, right? That's just one way of doing it, right? You could write a book and make it a best-selling book and promote it very well and earn 20K a month that way, right? So there's so many ways to do it. And so that would be one of the ways that you could have, I guess could say, the lifestyle without the net worth, right, to start, right? And most of you, that's probably where you will start, right? So if you've got a way that maybe it's not 100% passive, but let's say you only have to spend 5-10 hours a week on it and you're earning $20,000-$30,000 a month, that is another way that you can kind of enjoy that lifestyle, enjoy that freedom while you're building that net worth or those liquid reserves, right? Or you allow your equity and ownership in either businesses or in real estate over time to get there, right? But I really wanted to, it looks like this rain's done now. Yeah, I knew it was going to be speed of clouds. But I really wanted to get you into those numbers because so many people talk about generational wealth. And it's like, really, unless you've got 10, 20 million, like I said, very liquid, you're not doing much. Now, I'm going to hit that point a little bit more because I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are mastermind groups. There are organizations where, and when I say mastermind groups, I'm talking about peer groups where I guess you could say on the lower level, you got people that, own Dodge Chargers and they got car clubs, right? They hang out and drive their car. Man, that's I don't know what happened inside that door, but yeah, that's got to get fixed. But anyways, they hang out and, they talk about what they do with their Dodge Chargers and whatever customizations they want to do, custom paint, custom rims, or, custom performance, exhaust, and things like that. So man, look at this old school Hummer too. Man, flat tires, but that's the original Hummer shape and design. I don't know if they're as popular as they once were. But yeah, you got people that do that. But then you also have people with money that want to figure out how to make more money or what to do with the money that they do have or that they are earning, right? And so you have peer groups or mastermind groups and organizations where you have to have either a minimum net worth or a minimum income level to be able to join. So one of them, I know you have to have a minimum of $500,000 a year in income, or you have to have a minimum of $1 million net worth, and you cannot include your primary residence. So basically, you got a home and it's gone up in value, you can't count that equity towards your net worth. It has to be outside of your primary residence. Man, is this thing super clean right here? But yeah, you got groups like that. There's some other groups where it's like you have to have a minimum of $50 million net worth. And then there's others where you have to have a minimum $100 million net worth with, a certain amount of investable income. And then also you have what's called family offices. And so family offices are essentially your own bank, like a family-owned bank, essentially. But it's full with, and then you can have all types of investing styles, but essentially the point of a family office is you have professionals that are dedicated just to you and your family or whoever's involved with your family office and growing your money. And typically you want to be somewhere north of 25 million to have a family office. And usually you might partner with, let me see, 2-3 other families. And then I think somewhere around 50 million is where you would just have your single family period as the family office, and that's it. But in there, you're going to have like an insurance professional, you're going to have a tax professional, you're going to have your attorneys, your lawyers, and then for whatever you deem is best use of your money, you might have a stockbroker in there. You might have a real estate professional in there where, that's all they do is looking for real estate deals, continue growing or preserving the wealth, whatever it is, right? Look at this attention to detail with the pinstripes, though, and the super clean snow white interior. Look at that. Ooh. Beautiful. But yeah, you would have that somewhere around 50 million. And mind you, we haven't even talked about $1 billion yet, right? That's a whole nother echelon, right? You can blow 50 million and still have 950 mil left, right? And then we didn't even talk about, the Bezos or the Musk of the world that they have like a $200 billion net worth. So they could blow 10 billion with a B and still have 160 billion dollars left over, right? So I'm just trying to help you see the levels of finance that are out there that exist in this world. And now I'm trying to bring it down to where you hear your friend or your co-worker or your family member talking about generational wealth and they don't even make 300K a year. You see the difference. And why is that important? Because again, if you don't even know where the entry level is, where it starts, then if you are seriously interested in it, then you don't really even know what to aim for, right? You think a couple $100,000 is a lot of money, and it's really not when you start talking about generational wealth. Like $100,000 is like a rounding error, or that's the taxes on wealth, right? And so that's really what I wanted to share with you all with this video, because again, it's cute to say generational wealth. It's cute to say, oh yeah, I'm trying to set my kids up. But if you don't have enough money for yourself to not work for the rest of your life, you're not financially free. You're really, like I said, outside of paying for really good death insurance, life insurance, premiums, you're really not going to be able to pass anything on to someone else where they can't, or where they have the option to just not work ever for their entire life, right? And have a desirable quality of life with what you left them, right? Because again, you can get you $100,000, you can even get you $1 million policy for that matter, and even $1 million. They will be able to do better than 100,000, but I promise you, $1 million will not go that much further than 100,000 as you might think, right? Now you can certainly buy a house, and you can certainly buy a decent car, and then you can put a couple 100,000 away, and you might be able to, scrunch by on that, if you're really astute with it. But again, you really gotta manage it very, very well. But real wealth, it's like you got a quality of life, and you still got to go do something stupid to blow it. You know what I mean? But then you've got lawyers, you've got trusts, you've got rules in place that even if you have someone that's let's say an idiot or a financially irresponsible person, they can't spend it all because you've got the trust or you've got these things in place that they just can't spend it, right? You don't, they have to either get permission to go buy a $500,000 car, or they can only own one property, that's whatever the average home price of the area is, right? There's things you can put in place to make sure that they don't blow it, right? But anyways, I just want to give you an idea of what real generational wealth looks like from a numbers standpoint. And I also wanted to take you on this tour, see the Bentleys, see the Rolls Royces, the BMWs, right? And just give you an idea of what these things cost, right? Because you can see we saw $300,000, $400,000 cars, $500,000 cars. And so if you're thinking of, 200-300K in income a year is a lot, there's cars that cost more than that. And again, we're at a Bentley dealership. We're not at a Pagani. We're not at Bugatti, which I'm starting to hear that even Bugattis are starting to become a little more common. And Bugattis are $1 million car, almost, I think, $3 million brand new MSRP. So you're talking about $3 million cars, and I'm starting to hear those are a little less exclusive depending on where you live. So they're still upping it from there. And so the reason I think this is so important is that I think one error that you can make is you don't set goals big enough. Oh man, listen to how that SQ8 sound. Whoo, that Audi. Gosh, that thing's beautiful. That's actually gonna be my next video. Not that one specifically, but oh man, I want to go check it out. But it's gonna be that shape. It's gonna be the Audi RSQ8. So it's one level above that model. So that one is SQ8. It's like 500, and I think the 500 horsepower, not 500,000. So I'll make that clear. But the RSQ8 has got like 560 something horsepower, almost 600,000. And that one I'm going to be getting a pre-owned model. So it'll be somewhere around, I don't know, 80 to 100K ish is what I'll buy. And I will not be making a video when I buy it. It'll just be, maybe I might make a review or I might talk about it, but definitely won't make a purchase video. But man, the thing looks clean, especially with that matte black like that. Oh man. Oh, okay, he's backing up right there. But yeah, it looks clean. But anyways, I wanted you all to check out this dealership and see the cars. And you can see, some of them are almost $500,000 already. And as you can see, we saw somebody that owns one that's already $500,000 or more brand new. But I think it's so vital that, because you can set your goals or find out you're not setting your goals big enough. But I would think even worse is that you could set your goals too low and actually hit them, and then realize that you didn't get what you were aiming for, right? And so when you setting your goals, you really need to look at the real numbers, right? Come to the lot, come look at the cars that you're interested in, right? Come see what they cost today, because I assure you in 10, 20 years they're going to cost maybe double or at least 15, 20% more, right? And write the real numbers down. What does it cost, right? Whether you're going to buy it cash, whether you're going to finance it, and do the same thing for houses. If you want a yacht, if you want to fly private, you want to own a jet one day, like go look at the cost of these things. And when you talk about just even financial freedom or independence, let alone wealth, then you see that the numbers are usually a lot higher than what most people are willing to accept and swallow. And this is why when you talk about, let's say, mastermind groups I just told you about, where you have to have a certain minimum net worth, like there's barriers to entry, because they want to know that if we're going to either share these secrets with you or we're going to have this conversation with you, we want to know that you're serious, right? Like you can talk generational wealth with almost anybody if you're coming from a positive standpoint. And for most people, other than a few negative people in the hood, most people would have a a pleasant conversation like, oh yeah, that'd be nice. I'd love to leave, something behind for my kids, for my wife, my daughter, my husband, et cetera, right? Most people would have that with you. But then now when you talk about real numbers, that's where the emotion gets involved, and the reality of that it's not as easy as it might seem, slipping off the tongue. And then that's where you realize, like, wow, okay, now when we talk about, oh yeah, it'd be nice to have a Bentley and a Ferrari and a Lamborghini, and oh, it'd be nice to spend a week in the Maldives or 2 weeks in the Maldives and travel the world or take a trip every month, and now you start looking, okay, well, what does it cost to have a $2 or $3 million home, right? And what's the mortgage on that if you're not going to pay for it cash, right? And then you want a couple $1,000,000 in the bank. Then you start to see, like, oh my gosh, 100,000, 200,000 is nowhere close to being able to afford that type of lifestyle. And now you're thinking, man, I thought just working, earning that I would have, but now you're talking about not working and being able to have that type of income coming in. You see what I mean when I say now you start to have to think a lot bigger? And I don't think it's a bad thing, because this channel is not designed for those of you that are small thinkers or those that are looking to just live mediocre. And when I say mediocre, I understand that there's certainly way more. Well, I'm not going to say way more, but I'm going to say there's also other important things in addition to finance, right? Obviously family, obviously your faith, right? Obviously your marriage, if you are married or planning to get so, obviously your health, right? But finance plays a huge part in those things, right? If you don't have any money, what's your family, situation like? What's your marriage like? What's your health like if you can't even afford to buy healthy food, right? So, this is not to, I guess you could say, eliminate the other things that are important in life, but it's also to highlight one of the major things that are important in life, and that's your money, because most of us spend a large percentage of our time working for it, right? So it behooves you to learn how to make a lot of it, how to earn it, how to manage it, how to invest it, how to grow it, because most people, they spend at least 40 hours plus a week working for money. And I think if you're honest and you were to do an inventory of most people, there is nothing else in life that they do that they spend 40 hours a week on, including social media. So I'm gonna say it again. For the average person in America, they do not spend 40 to 50 hours a week doing anything else other than sleeping. And I would say most people don't get 8 hours of sleep every night. So there's nothing else that people do in life, or that I guess you could say that they spend more time on in life than trading their time for money. And then we're not even going to include the hour, commuting to work, and the hour commuting back from work, and the, hour getting ready for work, or decompressing from work when you get home. We're not even going to include that, but we're just going to say that 40 hours just starts and stops mysteriously, that you don't have to commute, you don't have to get ready, you don't have to unwind. I think you start to see you spend a lot of time for money. So to ignore wealth, or to not at least give it a strong consideration, or at least to run the numbers and say, what is that real numbers? I think you're doing yourself a disservice. But I also wanted to highlight the fact that there's a lot of people that are talking about generational wealth that are nowhere near close, and they won't even touch it in their lifetime. And it's not that they couldn't, but they're not willing to do what it's required to get there, and they're put off by the real numbers, right? Because again, we just saw that Rolls Royce sitting over there, $500,000 vehicle sitting out here in the rain. You saw it, it rained. And you guys saw it. There was no service person running over there to cover up the Rolls Royce. It's sitting out in the rain. It's a $500,000 car. This one right here is a 5-year-old, this is a 2020 model Bentley, and they're asking $400,000 for it. It's 5 years old, and you can see it's sitting in the rain. And so I got to ask you, do you want to be the person that judges these things or thinks it's impractical, or would you rather be the person that can afford to have a $300K car sitting out in the rain and not even think about it? Right? So, generational wealth, guys. It's definitely something that I aim for, but again, I don't even talk about generational wealth for myself just yet because I'm still working on my financial freedom. I'm still working on getting me rich, right? And so I recommend to all of you to do the same. Make sure you're rich first, make sure you're financially free first, and then you can worry about taking care of the next generation. And I promise you, when you have that 10, 20 million liquid investable funds, it'll be a lot easier for you to go from 20 million to 30, 40, 50 million. Because the first 100,000, I would say, is probably the hardest. The first million is the hardest. But beyond that, it gets easier, if you can believe that. I could just tell you from observing, but I can just tell you, when you've got a couple $1 million to invest, to move, you don't need as high of a return, for one. For two, you have a much larger lever to move things. And then three, you are in association with other people that are worth millions or that are earning millions. And so you have a network that is a lot more skilled than if you weren't earning that, right? So that's just how it goes. And so you just learn to, I wouldn't say you learn, but you have more access, right? And so with that, you also get different opportunities, right? And then you're already a accredited investor. If you don't know what a accredited investor is, look up what's an accredited investor. So you get investment opportunities that others that don't have your financial prowess don't have access to, right? So to wrap this video up, generational wealth, I think we'll do one more round of the parking lot. This is also my exercise for the day, guys. So it's not that I'm just continuously checking out the cars. I want to show it for your video, but also I'm getting my steps in today. And as you can tell, between the rain and the weather, I was just like, you know what, let me just walk at the dealership and make the video there. That way, just like I did, I can hide inside or at least underneath the covering. This is the one here. Not that you all are dying to know what I'm gonna buy next, but because this channel's for you. But this is the Audi SQ8. The RSQ8 looks very similar. It's just gonna be, it's just gonna have a larger motor in it. And then I think these are 22-inch rims. It would have 23-inch rims. But other than that, it's gonna be clean like that. And it's gonna be pre-owned. That'd be a whole another episode on talking about depreciation and things like that. But there is a guy, I have not taken this course yet, so I can't say how good or bad it is, but what he says makes sense to me. It's called Exotics Car Hacks. But his essential claim to fame is he teaches you how to buy these cars after the depreciation curve, or within a certain part of the depreciation curve where you either break even or even make a little bit of money, or you minimize how much you're losing, right? So say like this Cullinan, for example. I don't know if Rolls Royces drop. Rolls Royces don't seem to drop as much as Bentleys, but I know for a fact Bentleys drop like a rock. So say this Bentley right here, brand new, is $300,000. Well then, probably within 5 years, this thing will go for $150,000, and with very similar miles, so 20, 30,000 miles, it'll go for 150. And I mean, if you don't have to have the brand new, and I'm going off on a tangent here from the wealth video, but if you don't have to have it brand new, you can get a 3 or 4 year old Bentley. It's just as nice for 120, 150 rather than 300K. And then you didn't lose 150K. And then when you sell it 2, 3, 4 years later, what, it might be worth 100, maybe 75, 80, right? But you didn't lose your shirt on it, right? So, and if you don't mind switching out the car sooner, then you might even could break even, right? So if you buy it, let's say now 2020 model, you pay 100K, 120 for it, you sell it in 2 years, you sell it for 100, 110, then it didn't really cost you much to own it other than whatever you paid in maintenance, right? So that's the idea behind it. But yeah, guys, gonna wrap this video up. I think I've done enough laps around this parking lot to get my steps in for the day. But I just came straight from the gym, so But yeah, I think it's very important to understand what real generational wealth looks like and where it starts at, and really how much money it really actually is, so that next time you have that conversation, or even next time you have that thought, you realize like, okay, if we're not really north of 20 million, we just talking. It's just like saying you're gonna buy the Dallas Cowboys, right? That's cute, but it's just like, man, if you ain't worth a couple $100 million, or if you don't know people that would give you a couple $100 million, and you don't really know how to get a multi-billion-dollar loan, you've never gotten one, you've never even talked to the bank, then it's just like, it's cute, but you're not really serious with it, right? You're not really serious about it, right? And so I think a lot of people, it just sounds good. But for those of you all, I really wanted to show you what the real numbers look like, so you can actually have at least an idea of a real target. And again, you can adjust that up and down. And again, I wouldn't say solely focus on it, but just also realize that, hey, there's a lot of ways that you can make 10, 20, 30K a month that don't require you to be there all the time, or to put in 40 hours a week, that you can kind of live that lifestyle as you're earning that money, or you're learning to build assets or businesses, or you're adding to your real estate or expanding your portfolio, et cetera, however you want to do it, to be able to have that liquid cash and beyond, right? So would always appreciate your comments, your feedbacks, like, subscribe, share if you got value. And I really would love to hear your feedback on this, because I know finances are especially a sensitive topic, especially when you start actually getting down to real numbers, right? It's always cute, it's always fun when you're just like, yeah, make more money, live the life. But then when you really start putting real numbers to it, and you really start looking at, okay, what does it cost to own a 400K car if you're going to leverage it, right? If you're going to put 20% down and get a loan from the bank, now you're going to put car insurance on it, and this is probably not your only vehicle. Now they want you to have a house, or, this is real. They're going to want you to have a house or a condo or something, right? But they're not just going to want you to just live nowhere, right? So they want you to have some type of property in your name, right? When they're financing this type of vehicle, or they're going to want such a large down payment that you essentially nullify their risk, right? One of the two. So when you start looking at that, you start looking at, okay, if I'm going to live 30, 40 years and not work and be able to sustain a certain lifestyle, and I'm going to account for inflation, then you really start to see like the numbers that you might have in your mind are a lot higher. And that typically makes people uncomfortable, right? And maybe that is what you need, but the truth is the truth. It doesn't, your feelings don't change the truth, right? You thinking that it's ridiculous does not change the price that's required to buy these Bentleys that are sitting here behind me, right? That you saw. So, whether you think they're worth it or not does not matter. They're going to sell for close to what the asking price is. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but it's not going to be more than 10, 15% off, right? If that, right? So just keep that in mind. So the sooner you deal with the truth, sooner you actually look at the real numbers, the more you can actually say, okay, if I'm talking about generational wealth, then I need to have north of this before I can even get started on that journey, right? And everyone is where they are, right? But you have to be real with the numbers, and you got to have a lot more excess capital and funds, and it has to be more than just enough to get by, right? Be able to create something like generational wealth, right? You can't just have a goal of, well, it costs me 20K a month to live, I make 20K a month, I'm good, I'm free, right? If you're gonna create that, you need maybe 30 or 40K a month, because you're like, hey, I'm gonna live off of 20, but I'm gonna invest another 10,000 a month or 20K a month or whatever it is, right? And grow that, or buy a business, or develop real estate, or invest in real estate, or whatever it is, right? But you're going to need excess capital to be able to build that and create that. You know what I mean? So I think it's just very vital to look at that and consider for yourself. Is it something that maybe in a lifetime you want to pursue? And again, like I said, if you're not financially free, If you're not rich yet, if you can't just take a whole year off or 2 years off, you don't have a lifetime wealth just yet, then I think that should be your focus first, right? Focus on getting you rich, focus on getting your immediate family well-to-do. And then from there, when you get there, you'll be able to see further. So, till next video, take care, guys. Yeah, we'll see you next week.